So I don't know about all of you. Alessandro and I recently did a video on why are IPAs so popular. And the topic came up about lagers. And we have been asking ourselves this for a little while. What happened to the lager? Why is it that when you go to your local liquor store and you go to your local grocery store, wherever it is that you procure your delicious brews, why is it that you're not seeing a shelf full of microbrewed lagers? They do exist, but it's normally the bigger microbreweries that will have produced some lagers, and they're not as prominent as some other styles like IPAs, like pale ales, like even stouts or porters in a lot of cases. So my friend, I need to put this question forward to you because I know we've discussed this on our live streams many times and we have our own theories on this. And like everything that we discussed, let us know down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your theories? We're dying to hear from you. This topic is open for discussion and debate. But my friend, why do you think the lager itself is not more prominent on our beer shelves than it is right now?
Well, there might be different reasons. I think there's let's say an economic aspect, so financial.
Definitely.
Let's say a financial aspect to it. So for a microbrewery, to tackle lagering, it just also means in terms of time, lagers take longer than ales to be ready because they have to lager, which means be stored, and they have to be.
There we go.
Fermented at a
So
lower...
I was going to say, for anybody who might be watching who doesn't know what lagering is, why don't you give them like a really quick rundown of what it means to lager a beer?
Yeah, so the main difference between an ale and a lager is that lagers are fermented at a lower temperature. So the yeast becomes active at a lower temperature, but then they have to sit and be stored. Lager is a German word for storage, to store in a container for a certain amount of time to get clarified.
It's a beer fact.
Exactly. And
I had no idea.
Yeah, and they stay for a certain amount of time. And if you're a small microbrewery starting up, it's a style that can be challenging because you have to wait longer for the beer to be ready before you can actually serve it, compared to ales and other styles.
But again, going back to the production of the lager, so how long do you lager the beer?
So it depends. Most of the time, you're going to expect with almost any lager, you're looking at a month. For the full process of fermentation and lagering itself. Yes. There are new yeast strains that are coming to light. There's a Mexican lager yeast strain that can pump out a lager in about 9 days.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking a light lager, so 3 to 4% somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But a 9-day turnaround makes it feasible for smaller brewers who typically wouldn't be able to produce a lager to produce them now, because now you got 9 days in the tank fermentation, but you can start lagering about halfway through. I think it allows you to within 2 weeks now you have a lager, and and it's really clean. We use it here every once in a while. We don't like to use the same style of yeast for every single thing, so we change things up. But when we do use it, we're just always so impressed. Why has this never been a thing before? We could have been making lagers quicker a long time ago. Right. But also, it's consistently the product that we're looking for. It's not degrading our quality while gaining that efficiency.
But then I personally also think that there's another aspect.
Well, I think that's the big one. And exactly like you said, I think if you're a small microbrewery that's starting off, you might have limited space in your brewery. Who knows how many tanks you have? Beer tanks are expensive. I think we have some videos coming up that you should keep an eye out for where we do a tour of the Barry House Brewery down in Tampa, as well as Coppertail, and you get a good view as to different size microbreweries and how many tanks they have. They don't come cheap, and space is limited. So to have space to be able to store all this beer when you're starting off as a small microbrewery or even a medium-sized microbrewery, to be able to store all these lagers for an extended period of time, that's a resource and a luxury that not everybody has. Can you think of anything else?
Well, I have this is more a speculation. It could be, but I have a feeling that a lot of the craft beer drinkers have developed a little bit of an aversion to lagers, in the sense that if you think about historically, right, the micro breweries used to make lagers, they've went to a very specific direction of getting them very
drinkable,
simple, let's say, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, as a reaction, the first craft breweries started making styles that were more flavorful. So a lot of people like are attached to those styles, and when they go to
That's
a
a good point.
microbrewery,
That's a good point.
they expect to see that, right? Like, so you want to see the latest IPA on tap, like maybe not,
Yeah.
just a lager, right?
That's a
In
really good
sense.
point. And I think the market has sort of been trained to kind of look for things that are a little bit more flavorful and a little bit more complex over the years. And maybe lagers are viewed as being a little bit too simplistic or a little bit too associated with macro breweries. And so maybe that has something to do with it.
What's interesting that you said that sours aren't as popular as you would think they are right now. That's really funny. 'Cause
Well, they are in the community, like the
Totally, yeah.
beer community, but to a novice or somebody who's not used to drinking craft beer,
Yeah.
it's a very just like, what? This is beer?
You know what? I'm really curious to pick your brain about that because we've had a lot of conversations about this where, IPAs have kind of dominated the market for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And it seems like sours are in kind of like the craft brewer's beer of choice over the last maybe like 2 or 3 years.
For sure. Sours fit in that realm, but honestly, we all drink lagers. Like,
See, that's okay.
95% of the time,
Dude, I
we
love
drink
that you
lagers.
said that because this has been our mantra for the past little while. It's like, show me that you can make a great lager.
There's nothing
And-
to hide behind.
There's nothing to hide behind. Exactly. And for
And,
us, it's so much more impressive when somebody can pump out one really good lager.
Yep.
And
Than if they can make 10 really passable or like decent IPAs.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Which,
Well,
by the
because
way,
you got pastry sounds are a perfect example. Like,
Yeah.
you can make a bad beer,
Yeah.
but if you throw coconut and vanilla and graham crackers and all this stuff into it
Yeah.
just so that nobody tastes it,
Yeah, exactly.
they might not taste it. But with a lager, there's nothing to
There's
hide
nothing to
behind
hide behind.
at all.
Exactly.
The flavor is what it's going to be. If there's a flaw, you will pick up on
It's
it.
kind of like the purest expression of
Yes.
beer brewing, I
Yes.
would say, because exactly like there's nothing to hide behind.
Yep.
You taste everything, everything's obvious.
Yep.
The body's obvious, the mouth feels obvious, the finish is obvious, there's nothing.
The hard part with lagers, though, is that a lot of places can't produce them, even if they want
That's the
to,
thing,
because
that's the thing.
it takes
Yeah.
up tank space for much
Exactly.
longer, usually 2-3
Yeah.
times longer. So
That's the-
no, we've always done lagers. We really enjoy doing lagers because it's what we want to drink anyways.
Yeah.
But also,
That's so interesting that you say that.
But no, but I'm glad that we got on the topic.
Yeah.
That was a question that we had. We're very passionate about that.
yeah, no, for sure. We just like having essentially multiple options for everyone.
Yeah.
But lagers are just like you said, pretty much the purest expression of what a beer should be.
Yeah.
And if you can do it well, it's all the more impressive. And even if only the people who are nerds like us
Yeah.
enjoy it or appreciate that, that's okay with us because we know that a part of our consumer base recognizes that we're doing this and taking the time to do it well.
And it sets the standard, in my opinion, for the brewery. Because,
Yes.
like he was saying, you're making it well and it tastes delicious.
Mhm.
Everything else is going to be a reflection of that.
Yeah.
Which it's amazing.
But we are seeing a little bit of a renaissance now of microbreweries that are really jumping on the lager train, which is nice. And maybe that's because IPAs have been so dominant in the
Yes.
market for so long that maybe now it's almost like the punk rock thing to do now to make a lager
Yes.
instead of making an IPA. Like that's going against the grain. Whereas 10 years ago, it was making an IPA. That was going against the grain. How hoppy can you make your beer? Right? There are breweries
Exactly.
like Stone Brewery that started off as a small microbrewery that made their name on just assaulting you with hops in their beers and just, made a huge name for themselves doing that and made a lot of delicious beers along the way. But I think it's going the other way now. And then there's always those ebbs and flows like in anything, right? And I think the beer world is kind of seeing that flow now where it's like
Yes.
we've seen IPAs for so long and we've seen these really sort of flavorful, the porters. There's so many delicious craft porters out there that are really popular now too. You go to any microbrewery, they'll have a couple of different porters, or like the sours are getting really popular now too. Things that really push your palate. Now you're sort of seeing no, you know what? We're gonna make a really good lager, and we're gonna blow you away.
Exactly.
with our lager.
Exactly.
Everyone, let us know down below. What do you think about this? What are your opinions? Do you want to see more lagers coming out of the microbrew world, more unique lagers, more creatively made lagers? Let us know what you think down below. And as always, do not forget to close your beer brackets.
Never forget.
Don't want to leave those open.
I actually have a question for you that I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
So aside from any beers that you would make here at Coppertail, we deal a lot with easily accessible beers that people can find either at a local liquor store, maybe at a grocery store. What's your favorite lager? Easily accessible lager that you think people can probably find in most states and most liquor stores.
So that's tough.
Is that tough?
One of the first ones that jumps to mind when we're talking that scale,
Yeah.
Pivo Pills.
Okay.
From Firestone. Love that beer. Absolutely love it. It's not everywhere in the States, and it didn't get to Florida until, 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
But Pivo Pills would be up there. Derek, favorite nationally recognized craft lager?
Craft lager?
Yeah.
That's a tough question.
It's a tough question, right?
God, that is really hard.
Yeah.
Pivo Pills.
Look at that.